What's going on, workforce? Brian and the Hairman here, diving into his ARR experience. If you guys have been following the stream, note that Chris sat down and played through all of ARR prior to 6.1, and now we actually get to talk about it. This is going to be interesting because my ARR experience is from when ARR was current. You skipped over it to catch up to me. Like, that's the story here. And as we dive into a spoiler-free week with 6.1, hopefully this is some fun spoiler-free content for you in your feed today. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share all the standard YouTube stuff. Chris, so you've played through Shadowbringers and Endwalker.
Yes.
You've now finished ARR, the base game, not the patch updates, and your plan obviously is to get all the way through. So we're going to be talking about this in the context of a veteran player playing ARR for the first time. You're traditionally been the story skipper. What gives? What are your thoughts here at the Waking Sands?
So I have returned 14 times so far. We don't appear done with them yet. So the ARR experience was something that, like, I tried it post Shadowbringers. I tried to start over because Shadowbringers Yoshi P said, hey, even if you're a story skipper, we wrote this so that obviously people who enjoy the story will enjoy it. But we also think that some of you who have historically bought story skips or just skipped your way through, or you've been away for a while, we think that you'll enjoy this as well. And so I gave it a shot, and I really enjoyed Shadowbringers. And then this chef that prepared me this wondrous meal said, hey, in college, I used to put some dried basil on some canned ravioli, and that was really awesome. Do you want to have that next? And you're like, well, I mean, what I had was awesome. Sure, I'll trust you. No, that wasn't awesome. Like, ARR post Shadowbringers did not catch me. I was not, because we went from the first back to here. And so there was still so much information being bombarded on me. And in addition to that, like, it is slow and the combat is not that often. But doing it post Endwalker was much closer to like that dive bar in your college town experience. Like, it was so nostalgic because Endwalker gave me a relationship with the grand companies. Endwalker gave me a better relationship with the city-states. Endwalker, it was much more grounded here in Eorzea. And so I have a relationship with the Empire now. I have a relationship with Ascians that feels more developed than Shadowbringers did. I have a more developed relationship with Hydaelyn. And so as we go back and we interact with these things for kind of the first time, I care about a lot more than just like the scions that were regularly with us in Shadowbringers, because Endwalker was so much more inclusive. So I had an absolute blast. I think that the changes overall will be good. I wanted to clear it the way it was before it was gone. I think the changes overall will be very good for the pacing at the end, because I can say that, like, I had to wait to get into Castrum, and like, if you had to wait to get into Cape Westwind because you're not a tank, and then you had to wait to get into Castrum, and then you had to wait to get into Praetorium, and then you watch the credits, like, that's like a 5-hour section.
Yeah.
That, like, you gain no experience, no gear. The combat is not really that serious because we're so overtuned as a group. As a new player, that would be a miserable experience. But as somebody coming back, I had an absolute blast.
Now, you did wait and see my name in the credits, right?
I did. I waited to see Brian's name.
Perfect. All right, so let's talk about it in the terms of, though, like, if I had forced you to play the story back in 2.0, prior to Chris and Shadowbringers and Endwalker, would that have been the right call for me to force you to do that at that time?
No, I would have quit. I would have quit. I know that the story pays off now. Back then, there are times that, like, people saw through my playthrough, people that hung out on stream see that, like, I struggle with, like, the logical inconsistencies that an MMO has to take on from a game development standpoint,
right? And
a game built in 18 months, that a single player game can either have more suspension of disbelief or give me more agency to kind of justify my choices. Because you're kind of fated to do certain things. There's some weird stuff that happens throughout the story that I found very frustrating. And so, like, while I care deeper for ARR now than I did, not all of those abilities are, not all those feelings are more positive. There are some things that switched from slightly positive to deeply negative, that I really dislike why we were there and what we were doing and how it was handled. I have no idea why Alphino is trusted with that level of command at like 16, and Sid's like, whatever you want to do, man. What? And like, we're helping, put down a slave rebellion in Copperbell, and we're like, there's just all of this stuff that I don't like. And then there's areas that like I want to know more. So like we get into this Ishgardian stuff and they talk about these houses, and then they're just like, yeah, and then you got to get back. And like, it's like, okay, but I wasn't done.
Yeah.
And in an ESO or like an Elder Scrolls type game, you would stop and you would go through a side quest storyline right then and there, right? Like the MSQ doesn't just like drag you away right as you get invested. Like, no, you can stop and join whatever local guild is in the area and work your way up. And, you know, and so there's a little less of that kind of forced. And so I think it really wasn't for the player that I was. I don't even know that I don't even know that I would like it now if I didn't know where we were headed. There's something
right. Like if you were coming in fresh off the boat, hey, I finally decided to join Brian in, you know, and I see all these people, WoW players telling me like, hey, come play Final Fantasy now. Yeah. Like that's one of the things that like I've always stated, like I enjoyed my 2.0 experience. Coming from 1.0, it was like, wow, like it was like, oh, this is all changed. And this is like, there was also the experiment of like, what's all changed, and getting to see that story and that narrative continue to drive and then drive us right in to Heavensward, and having that whole expansion and that experience, I think was really ideal. And to the point where like, when I look about how much time I consumed and played the game back then, doing the relics, doing like all the like chimeras, and like that was just like, oh man, this is great, and we're all teaming up, everybody's chatting. When I look at how that built in, and it was clear to see that after I beat Heavensward, like why I burned out. And that was like where I always try to sit here and make sure that I'm gauging that meter in my own personal life, because I was like, I went from Heavensward beating the story to literally, because it was like a 5-month gap. That was actually when like they were exhausted. And then we didn't get patch 3.1 until like almost into December, I believe, to where it's like I came back for that and I was like, this is great. They introduced the feast in like 3.2, like, oh, this is great. But it was weird because at that point you had to hit the level cap to get into the PvP. So it's like, that's why I'm thrilled by the fact we'll be playing PvP today. If anybody's interested in hanging out with us in these, like we're just kind of hopeful for this latest round of updates. But the story for me was impactful because it was a story about what's all happened since we were last there. New players coming in without any prior, I was like, oh, I can see how people can struggle with that, where it's like, you know, and then one of the problems that we actually, I think, see is that you can kind of see the evolution of like what you were as an adventurer versus who you are now as the warrior light. Would the warrior light be tasked to go and like beat down these slaves that were like, maybe they shouldn't be slaves, and maybe we should figure out how to work with them like we do in Endwalker? Like when you look at how
even
where we start,
yeah, where we try to hold this moral high ground, and it's like, I don't know that maybe you should take a step back.
But I look at it in terms of like when you look at, okay, yeah, that's a beast tribe and our view, and now how that's changed to tribal, and that like, yeah, we could maybe work with the giants, maybe like there's inroads like there have been with all the other different tribal races, that when you realize like what the, you know, what is really going on, and now with cure to tempering and, you know, things of that nature, like I'm actually really more excited for the future, and because there's so much that we could go through. Is there a deity or you know, something for the giants themselves? That's who we beat down in Copperbell, meaning like, is there some way that we can end up like establishing relations with them, and or do they start going and doing their own summoning, you know, and come up with like, oh, it turns out what we need crystals, because now we can start to, you know, actually like have a seat at the table like everybody else that was doing summoning and then got cured. I don't know. I'm just speculating here.
Yeah, I mean, we worked really hard to create inroads with the sylphs, who effectively only didn't summon their primal because Ramu wasn't ready for 2.0 release. Like, it wasn't the writers weren't truly trying to protect them from summoning their primal. It's their primal literally wasn't ready. And yet, like, we didn't work hard to make inroads with the giants, and we walk all over the Sahagin, who like we take people that we call fishbacks, and I described that to my wife, and she goes, "That sounds terrible," and I was like, "It is terrible." She goes, "It sounds like it's a racial slur that I've just never heard of," and I was like, "It is a racial slur you've never heard of."
Yeah.
And so like it's bad, and so we're humans, they're fish. We come to the table, we're more powerful, and say, "Hey, we're gonna take first pick. We take the water," and the fish are like, "Okay, I guess. Like, wouldn't we get the water and you get the land?" No. We get the water, you get the land. We shove them on the land, and then we're like, "Hey, we thought about it. Actually, you're right. We need the land.
We need the land.
We need land." Oh, so we get the water?
No.
And so like we're awful to them. Absolutely awful. The dungeon that gained that lost the most ground for me was Copperbell. As far as a dungeon that like I already didn't like it, and I like it way less now. The dungeon that I gained the most for is I really like Stone Vigil. Stone Vigil as a dungeon is hard. It's really hard because of where it falls in the level range. It's really hard to heal. It's really easy to overpull. I was under geared. I've been doing some of my class quests as I go, but not others. So like I don't have all the skills maybe I should. I definitely don't have gear. It's really, really tough. And I've always liked that about it, but like I didn't really know the lore behind it. I really liked it. It was what I wanted to stop and explore like an Elder Scrolls guild there. I want to stop and I want to take a moment, and I want to be invested with the Dravanians themselves. I want to go do a quest line with them, and like knowing that we go to Dravania, like I know the zones, that help gives me hope. But like knowing that we don't have like a Dravanian beast tribe tells me I'm never going to get fully paid off.
We do have the Dravanian beast tribes
in the same way. Do we?
Yeah.
Have I already done that one? It was so long ago. I only do beast tribes till I get them out.
Yeah.
I'm really excited now.
It's the little bug mount. Yeah. It's the.
Oh, I'm really excited now.
Yeah, it's the freaking like drug dealers. Like that's the whole like joke.
You're right. Yeah.
I was like,
I'm excited.
Yeah, they worship Ravana.
Good. That's what I want to do now.
Yeah.
I want to do it right now.
Oh, it's good. I like them. I'm not the fan of their mount, but I like the zone a lot.
And I'm excited to know more about the lore.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in the quality of our map.
Yeah.
Geography is poorly documented at best. Like Alphino's like, we're gonna go fight this base here in the Cape, and then he puts like the marker on a river. Buddy, capes are geographic formations. Like without knowing where it is, I can tell you it's not in a river. Because then it would be called something different. It would be like it's called Cape Westwind because it's in a cape. Like that's a place. That's a thing. Those form naturally.
Yeah.
So like there was some stuff that I was frustrated with geographically. The Gridanians are like, well, we can't fly any airships to between the city states right now because we keep losing them, and like we keep losing them to the Empire. And then you look at the map and you're like, you guys are offering really cheap air travel from Gridania to Limsa, and the path it shows is it's just linking over instead of going around. And you're like, I don't know, we keep losing ships. We fly these airships low over like, I don't know, 4 castrums, and for some reason they keep getting shot down. Why would you not go Gridania to Ul'dah to Limsa? Like that fixes all air travel.
Yeah.
It just fixes it. Like Cape Westwind, if you draw it on a cape and not in a river, means it was being backed up by the Limsan Armada, who takes on Cape Marineum. They should have been there to handle the retreat from Cape Westwind.
Mm-hmm.
There's a retreat off Cape Westwind of his 2 lieutenants. They bail back to tell Gaius that we're coming. Gaius then anticipates our entire strategy, and then Castrum and Praetorium turns into this huge ordeal that requires us to be backed by the Grand Company. We have to coordinate things with the adders blocking off Sentry. We have to handle all this. If those 2 lieutenants hadn't made it, Gaius wouldn't have known we were coming. Praetorium would have been half as long as an instance. The whole first half would have been handled.
Maybe they changed that in the lore now that it's half as long.
And so like it would have been so much shorter. All because the Armada wasn't there, because we don't respect geography. They should have been there.
I'm really looking forward to more of your lore posts. I am. Like it's you've been doing a lot of really good work. I think people will be excited when those videos start rolling out.
Also, Waking Sands does not have an aetheryte not because Lolarito said it shouldn't, but also because there should just not be an Aetheryte there. When you look at Aetherites as like centralized points of travel and like these, it would not, you would have it at the city down south of it. It would never have been there. So like, that's great that he got to like brag to his friends and stuff. Like, yeah, and I denied them even having one there. But like, also there shouldn't have been one there. So like economically, as somebody that manages his money, economically, he's just insulting you because he can. Like, it's like my wife books a trip out of town on your birthday, and I go, yeah, Brian, I was going to come to your birthday, but you're serving brownies instead of cake, so I'm not coming. But like, I already wasn't coming,
right?
So I'm just taking the chance to be a dick, just to be a dick. Like, there's,
well, that's Lolarito. Like, that's who he is.
So like the statue in the middle where the Aetheryte would fit is absolutely him insulting, but there should never have been an Aetheryte there.
The you know, there's actually a fast way to get to that place without the Aetheryte, though. You just go to Limsa, and then you take ferry, and you're there.
Yeah, except that you get, as a new player, you get like 6,000 Waking Sands tickets, so you get a free teleport there every time.
Well,
I have ones to spare.
That's great.
I started on a new character. I've been doing Road to 80. Road to 80 is nuts.
Yeah.
You can finish an entire class quest to 30 in like 2.5 hours. Paying attention to the quest.
So as we look forward, like, so essentially, like, your review is that having known where the story goes and it pays off, ARR enjoyed. If you did not know that, ARR, you probably would have still quit. Like, if you were coming in for the first time.
I see why people like it. It just wouldn't have been for me. So if there are players who say it's not for them, I totally relate.
So, though, now having played that and have that kind of foundation, you're actually more excited about where the story goes from here and into Heavensward.
Yeah, I'm gonna clear every single job quest to 50 that was available in ARR. I'm gonna clear Crystal Tower for the first time ever, Binding Coil for the first time ever, like the lore wise. They're of course cleared on my account. And then all the Beast Tribes that are in ARR. And then, which means I think I have to do Crafter and Gatherer. I don't know if I'm gonna do the Crafter Gatherer Beast Tribes because they're really
the Exalt, yeah.
And then I want to go into Heavensward. Yeah. And do this whole thing.
I'm really excited to see what you think about Heavensward. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like Heavensward for me, like to this day, like the connection with dragons, the story, the development. I really think it was really where there's like, I'm sure they might have made some different decisions now. Like, you think about the whole, like, you know, accompaniment system in Endwalker. Like, if Yoshi P had that option, I'm sure that he would have loved to have that in, you know, in Heavensward. And I would love to see that. Like, if they ever go back and bring that in, like, that would be a New Game Plus situation for me as well. Like, that would be amazing.
Yes, there's a lot of political drama happening up there already that I'm being exposed to. And there's a point where Alphino is standing in front of a fire. And he's like, hey, you got to go inside and talk to those people. And like, all I could think is, but can't you come with me?
Yeah.
Like, I have to keep reporting back to you 15 feet away. And the accompaniment would have handled that entire thing within camp, whatever that is, just south of Vigil. Like that whole thing, White Brim or whatever, you would have been there with Alphino, going in and talking to the nurse and talking to the lady down in the dungeon. And like, you would have been doing all that with Alphino. Yeah. And instead, Alphino is like, I'm cold. And it's just, you're just standing there.
Right.
Like, move around, go inside, get your blood flowing. What are you doing? So there's definitely some technology differences that I think would have helped them tell the story better. Voice acting is all over the place. The amount of voice acting is wildly disappointing. Where there is voice acting, like, it really adds a lot. I know that some people like the newer voice actors better than the old ones, but like,
when they shift it, like when they shift on you, expansion to expansion, it is like, you're like, wait a minute, you know, especially because when you're playing back to back, when there's been a 6-month gap since the last time you heard them speak, you're like, is this different? I think this might be different. but it's like, oh, one quest and then they're talking to you the next, you're like, okay. All right.
Yeah. So overall, very excited. Class quests, I do think need to be done in sets. Like, I did Gridania as a set.
Okay.
I did White Mage one day, Lancer the second day, Bard, Archer the next day. They tell a story about the Shroud.
Yeah.
And like, individually, they really are just like, we're just here doing our thing. But when you overlap them, like the Conjurers are like, we're here on behalf of the Shroud government, and for some reason the trees are getting sick, and like,
Right,
you've
right.
got to help us heal the trees. And then you do the Lancer quest, and they're like, you need to prove how tough you are. Go poison some trees.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't think we're supposed to be doing this. I'm like, yeah. You just put the poison under the root. It's gonna be awesome.
Easy. Don't worry, the conjurers will clean it up.
Trees get pissed. I don't know why. Probably isn't causing harm. And then the archers were like, really? Like, I just want to talk gossip about like the way all these city states and the different races are interacting with each other. And sometimes you need to align with terrorists. What are you doing?
What's going on here?
So I like doing the class quests as sets. I think it, like, the Marauder quest is just you hunting a big beast otherwise.
Right.
Like, if you don't pair it with the Arcanist quest to understand what's happening in Limsa, why are we doing that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
Cool.
The good news here is that Chris is going to continue on this journey. This week, spoiler free, I will be doing some PvP. I'm going to be holding off on doing the story and the raid for a little bit. So, please no spoilers as well. Namely, because I'm just really excited. Like I said, I was like, I really want to play the PvP. Like, I was like, when I log in, what do I want to do? And I was like, I really want to play PvP. Like, hands down, I want to sit in there. I want to just eat it all up and then be able to kind of talk about it, and then essentially come back into the story and the raid itself, which I'm very excited about. But I PvP just won out for me, hands down. So I was like, we'll be doing some spoiler free streams, gonna be hanging out. Chris, you got any things you want to plug before you take us out?
No, because of the amount of story. Well, yes, the amount of story I want to do. We're going to be doing some of that probably like every other week or every third week on stream. So if you guys want to pick up where I've gotten in story so far, I've been progressing through that. It's been a lot of fun because we've been kind of like not spoiling what's next in the sequence for me. So like, I don't know when there's a big reveal, but then we are talking in the context of like, what does this mean within the context of Endwalker? And we're talking about, and so that's been really fun. So if you want to be along for that, that'll be going on stream. And then, I'm sure Brian and I will have lots of content coming around.
Absolutely, guys. Buckle up. Be sure to subscribe, like, favorite, all that good stuff. Thanks for being here. We love you, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.